I want to follow up on that. A quick follow up on that, Aaron, is what about assigning of the security ownership between the DevOps teams, the cloud teams, the security teams? Any comments on what you're speaking of silos? That's lots of different silos. Security has a tendency to go horizontal, but what are you seeing organizations doing for
Yes.
security?
So what we've seen with security is that you'll create basically these controls around the application services. And then what you then do is basically templatize that and then send that off to your application owners so that they're then able to basically make sure that they're in compliance with what your security team has done, but it's going to be applied directly on them. You're no longer sitting at the highest level of the network waiting to get all this information. It's really going to be integrated down into the application level. And so I've seen with successes, the best successes that I've seen is that they create these templates basically for the different services. They analyze the services, understand what the best practices are. How does that conform to the company's understanding of security and what they then adopt as their model, and then send that down to the application owners, which then really increase their security overall, make sure that they don't lose any logs, because that's always a big factor, and then be able to report on anything that is coming up, being able to actionalize it, potentially even be able to automate some of these responses. A great example of that is AWS as well as Azure has the ability to host public files, right? And so they're accessible throughout the public internet, but you don't always want to be able to turn that on. So some companies just basically say, hey, if you try to flip that switch is automatically flipped off unless you have, authorization through that to be able to turn that on, and then they create exceptions. So just some of those things of being able to avoid those missed check marks, those slider switches, because it's so easy to provision things, the security definitely has to come into play. Otherwise, you might be opening yourself to a breach or potential leak of information that you didn't even know.
And how do you take your cloud team and then you have your security team, which is used to things like your traditional firewalls, your Palo Altos, your checkpoints, and how do you integrate where you would, who makes the decision, the cloud team on what kind of firewalling they want, or the people that are responsible for the security in the organization?
Yeah, that's a question that I've worked with a couple of clients to really understand the security level and the detail and who really has the ownership. So normally when you're going into the cloud, you create what you call the Cloud Center of Excellence. Cloud Center of Excellence is normally subject matter experts. One is normally security, of course, application understanding, database, if you guys are supporting that, as well as networking. So there's a couple different key players that are in that Cloud Center of Excellence. And then as you start to develop through the cloud, you then rely on those SMEs to be able to understand that application or what you're going to be doing. And I really think that overall the company is going to, refine and understand exactly what kind of security that they're looking for, especially if they're moving something from on-prem. They already have a standard of what they're thinking of. So really it's being able to put those security services in place. So you have a lot of ability, of course, with VMs and instances where you can put in third-party vendors, which then adds, of course, complexity, but it also might add a sense of security. You might already have that security vendor in place already, so you can then integrate it into more of your on-prem solution. So you're in still that one pane of glass, and being able to then actionalize those security events. That's really what it comes down to, being able to not only identify and report, but being able to take those actions against it, be it if you're sending it over to a ticketing system or if you're, again, using automation orchestration. But the security standpoint really needs to be defined from the organization and then filtered into the teams that are then utilizing the cloud.